Hello, welcome back to the Everything is Black and White podcast. It is an emergency episode with me, Andrew Musgrove, and Lee Ryder. Where else would you rather be on a sunny evening than talking about Bruno Guimaraes wanting to leave Newcastle United? Yes, the fear that most of us had this summer has inevitably come true. And the story broke earlier this evening. It's a story Lee's been covering really for the last few weeks, with the future of Bruno Guimaraes up in the air. With the midfielder at the World Cup, and obviously Brazil now out of the competition. His future at Newcastle United was always going to come back to being the main question. And tonight, Lee, it seems like Bruno Guimaraes has told Newcastle United he does indeed want to leave the club.
Yeah, quite a lot to sort of unpack. That initial sort of story that broke tonight hasn't been denied by Newcastle, but also obviously you've got to get the balance right on a story like this. From the Bruno side, the Bruno camp, they appear to be suggesting that they haven't leaked any information about his future. What it looks like is it's come from sort of middlemen, intermediaries, and potentially people involved in the deal. So it's a bit messy. It's far from ideal. Not what Newcastle United want, given they've had a couple of good days getting signings through the doors. But now they're faced with this. It's almost like Groundhog Day with Alexander Isak, isn't it? So yeah, it's not an ideal situation, but that's kind of where we stand with it. But I guess the proof in the pudding will be, will Bruno re-emerge for pre-season training later this month?
Now, obviously, Brazil exited the World Cup and Bruno missed a penalty, and emotions will be running high. Could there be a case, Lee, that this is kind of just an initial reaction from the Bruno camp, from the player himself, because he is so emotional and he's so upset at how Brazil exited the World Cup? He's getting criticised from some quarters in his own country, and maybe this is just a kind of a lashing out, if you will. And after the dust has settled in the next few days, he might just kind of reflect on this supposed decision and maybe have a change of mind about his club future.
I guess that's something only he can really answer. But let's be honest, let's be logical. If you miss a penalty in a World Cup, the next logical step surely isn't to then demand a transfer. It doesn't make sense, that sort of side of it for me. What I do know and what I have been sort of told probably for the last 2-3 weeks now is that interest from Arsenal is there. There is no concrete offer, bid, approach, but every team has players on the shortlist who they want. They certainly like Bruno. They've tried to sign him before. And for me, this really is a culmination of that sort of 2-week period where it's been getting mentioned. And now we're at the point where something's been leaked to probably try and disrupt things, test the water a bit more, and then it goes from there. So, yeah. But what we do know definitely is Newcastle don't want to sell. They've said that. He's not for sale. We don't want to sell him.
I know the last kind of week or so, there's obviously been talk about this clause that we reported isn't there, but that the £60 million price tag hasn't gone away. Some reports suggest that again has come from intermediaries who've kind of suggested that might be enough to get the deal done. I think for many who have kind of made peace with Bruno leaving, and I'm kind of in that camp, the one thing that I wouldn't be happy with, I wouldn't be happy with him going in the first place, but I accept, he's at the age where he's got one big move left. If he gets offered the chance to go to a potential Premier League title winning side, you're probably going to take it and chuck in a pay rise as well. But it's the price tag that has to be right for Newcastle United. And 65 million pounds, even given his age, given his contract situation, that seems a little off to me.
Yeah, it's a strange one. It's, not so long ago he's been talked about a £99 million player. There was a clause for £99 million where he could have left Newcastle. Man City were interested, but they didn't pay that money. Now it's dropped to 60, 50 million, whatever. You want to look whatever way you want to look at it. But I agree with you. That doesn't feel like it's worthwhile doing. But if his contract continues to run down, then the valuation is going to go down as well. So there's a time. It's like time in your run, and Newcastle have got to make a call whether they can get something acceptable this window or try and settle them down.
Dennis, who's watching live on YouTube, says £80 million would be for him. And a few people have hit around the £80 million mark with a few add-ons. Jeff says, I see him going for 75 to 80 million based on his age and desire to leave the club. I could live a little better with £80 million, although given his importance to Newcastle United, I think he's worth a little bit more. But it's down to Arsenal. And you mentioned there, Lee, there's been no club-to-club contact at this point. Obviously, the next stage of this saga would be Arsenal to put a firm bid in, and given all the signs and as you say, the interest is real, that's probably going to come sooner rather than later, and that will be the test. We are now essentially just waiting for Arsenal to put in, a bid, aren't we? That's where we're at.
Yeah, I think we've kind of been here before with a number of players. We've been here before with Arsenal. If you remember the Johan Cabaye saga back in the day, when Arsenal actually did table an offer, and obviously Cabaye was informed of that and said he wanted to go. Newcastle said it wasn't enough, and he then refused to play. He then refused to go on the pitch for Newcastle, and Newcastle did get him turned around again. They got him sort of focused for a few more months, but then the next window, when it came round, the agent was ready with something else. He ended up going to PSG, of course. So that's my worry. Let's say this comes and goes. Bruno's head's been turned, but he's still a Newcastle player. I'm not questioning his focus, but is he going to be the same player again after this? That's what I find hard to sort of process at the moment. I just wonder if it maybe is better to do it now while they can get some money, rather than losing the player that we all know and love. I don't know, but if it is genuine that he's told Newcastle he wants to go, then they've got a big decision to make.
Yeah, I think for many people, if it is the case that he has told them he wants to go, there's no way back, is there, from that moment, especially as club captain. And I mean, the reaction on social media from some, I think, has been way over the top. Some very unpleasant things said about Bruno. For me, I don't hold it against him. If he has told them he wants to go, if he does want to go to Arsenal, as I mentioned earlier, it's a chance to go to a side who will be wanting to retain the Premier League title, who will be wanting to win the Champions League next season. So I've got absolutely no complaints from Bruno's kind of point of view of wanting to go to that club who are challenging for honours. It's just about, I suppose, how the move happens. We don't want him to kind of go on strike. What we want is Newcastle United and Bruno to get this sorted as soon as possible, because we don't want it to drag on, because to replace a player like Bruno, it's mammoth, isn't it? And it changes the whole dynamic of the transfer window. We've been celebrating the work they've done in the last few days with the Ajax midfielder set to come in, and Toure getting signed, and maybe Manzambi and a couple of others. But Bruno, straight away you have to move away from that strategy of signing youngsters, don't you? Because you need to go and find a captain, a leader, an experienced player, and that changes the whole outlook of the window.
Yeah, it does, because those players won't come cheap. That's why it's kind of frustrating that 50, 60 million talk that's good enough for us apparently. But if we want to replace him, we've got to pay a premium, and we've got to go up to 100 million. It's not fair. It's like a Newcastle thing, and for me, I hope Newcastle are strong on it, and if he is to go, then I hope it's going to be something big, certainly beyond 60 million. But I'm just not sure, because I think this age thing is getting pushed from the people in the middle, the advisors, feels like they're saying, look, he's 29 next birthday. Are Newcastle going to get another big fee for him? It's hard. It's hard to see that in some ways. But as you say, the replacement is going to cost top dollar.
Darren watching live on Facebook says we have to be realistic. I love Bruno, as do my kids, and he's given us his all. We have to respect what he's done and accept that we aren't moving in the direction of what he likes or what Bruno wants or deserves. If he goes, we should thank him for what he's done. If it wasn't football, we thank him for his time and what he's done and wish him good luck. Don't want him to leave, but it will give someone else the opportunity to step in and be our hero. I like Darren. Darren seems sensible. That's a good outlook on it. You know what I mean? It's football. No player is bigger than Newcastle United, although I do accept that the one player you wouldn't want to lose this summer would be Bruno Guimaraes. But if it comes to it and Arsenal put down an acceptable bid, then you're right. I think Newcastle United probably will just accept that that's the way it's going to go. You thank him for leading Newcastle United to their first trophy since 1969. You thank him for the passion and the commitment and buying into what it means to be a Newcastle United hero, embracing the fan base as he's done. And he shouldn't worry about his reputation being dented, in my opinion. There's a lot of people saying one bad season and he's jumping ship. That's not captain material. I don't accept that. I think we've got to look at it from his point of view. Newcastle United, unfortunately, are not going to be challenging for the Premier League title. It's probably going to be a push to get back into the top 4 next season, if I'm being brutally honest. And Bruno, time is not on his side. This would be a move which gives him the opportunity to win things that he just can't here at Newcastle United. But on the European question, Lee, do you think maybe the outlook would be different had Newcastle qualified for the Champions League for the coming season?
Probably. I've been told the sporting project is something that is part of this, that he's worried that Newcastle aren't in the Champions League. He's concerned about player sales. If someone also, he'll be looking at Gordon going, and he'll be looking at Tonali going and thinking, well, hold on a minute. Do I get my dream move as well? Which I think we've discussed on our sports desk. We've discussed that. So yeah, there's a few ways of looking at it, but it's all at the minute. It just feels like it's all adding up to one thing, which is the player departs. This feels like the beginning of the end, unless there's something dramatic. Is he going to bring a statement out? Are we going to give him a contract? It's all right saying you don't want to sell him, but if there's so many people pushing it, agents, middlemen, Arsenal, it's going to be hard to stop.
Yeah, it is. And you mentioned it earlier, like, is there really a way back? Like, if his head's been turned, he's captain of Newcastle United, isn't he? Like that's a big responsibility. And I again reaffirm my stance that we shouldn't kind of hate on him for this, but also he comes back into the fold. Questions will be asked. Is he the right man to lead Newcastle United going forward? Like you, I only see this probably ending one way, and for the good of everybody, really. Now, if it is true that he has told Newcastle United he wants to leave, some people, they are saying it might be a ploy to get a new deal, but then we look at the numbers that he'll be wanting. Be wanting a substantial pay rise, and we talked about a few weeks ago. Getting that balance of doing that for Bruno, and I don't think many people would say it wouldn't be deserved because of what he's given us, but at the same time, a massive rebuild where big money has to be spent on some important positions in the team. And with the world of CSR or whatever it's called this week, that's difficult to do, isn't it? You can't probably break the wage ceiling that Newcastle United are currently under and go out and spend the big money on the players you need to come in and actually not only improve the first team squad, but actually the starting 11.
Well, this is it, and we done the story the other week saying Newcastle were operating with the lowest transfer budget, and that was very much the case. Then hey presto, they sell a player for 100 million and bring a couple of players in. That's the way it's going. Unfortunately, we have to sell to buy, and that because of the rules that you just mentioned there, it's going to be tough the remainder of the window. The days of just having a 240 million spend and the finances to absorb it just aren't there at the moment because of Newcastle's place in the pecking order, the money league, whatever you want to call it. Newcastle are 17th in that big table. The Premier League rivals streets ahead because they're ahead on the commercial side of it, and that's what Newcastle have got to contend with. And until they do contend with that, they're not going to be able to show the ambition of someone like Bruno and say, well, we're going to go out and buy an Elliot Anderson. You know, we're going to add some top players to our squad. At the minute, we're bringing in young, hopeful players who hopefully will do well. And look, we're Newcastle fans. We're all buying into that. We're all saying, yeah, come on, let's have next season with younger players. We'll all get right behind that. But at the minute, trying to satisfy a player who's concerned about the project going the other way, wanting Champions League, it might not happen next season because of the fact that the team's going to be inexperienced. So expectations have shifted a lot. And I mean, I don't know about you, but are you expecting top 5 next season, even before a ball's even being kicked? It doesn't feel like it with the squad. The piece of paper we're looking at now doesn't feel like that.
No, not at all. I think I was buying into this new approach, and I still back it, but it was done with the fact that, you know, you've got Bruno there, and I was like, you still need to add experience. But then if Bruno goes, you know, you definitely have to add experience, and it just taints it slightly because, as we just said there, it's a massive task, and it's going to be interesting to try and get into the depths of what some of these players have been sold, because, you know, can it really realistically be a Champions League push next season? I don't think it can be, and especially if you do lose someone like Bruno Guimaraes. Just before we continue with the questions, just want to say a big thanks to our sponsors, NordVPN and Saily. Click the link in the podcast description box if you want a discount on both products. Perfect if you're about to jet away on your summer holiday. Saily is the eSIM which keeps you connected once you land, and NordVPN will allow you to browse safely on public Wi-Fi, protecting you from the potential scammers and hackers lurking in the shadows. Click the link in the podcast description box and keep the podcast coming to you guys for free. Lee, we've spoken over the last kind of month about Bruno's future. I think we even did a couple of episodes before the season ended about the contract situation. If we were talking about it, if others were, you know, having questions and wondering what might happen and looking at maybe the worst case scenario, we have to hope Newcastle were thinking the worst case scenario as well. If Bruno goes in the next few days, the next week or so, will it be a case Newcastle United are starting from scratch in finding his replacement, or do you think they may have had a contingency plan where, you know, we don't want this to happen, but it might happen, so we better start planning for it?
Yeah, it kind of feels that way in some sort of context, but I can't judge it until I've seen that team picture. Don't even know if they do them anymore. You know, the squad picture at the training ground. Until I see that in September, I can't really make a solid judgment. So it's work in progress at the minute, and we don't know what the look of these new signings are going to be like in a Newcastle shirt. Hopefully, it's going to be great, but by the same token, I'm buying into it like you, and I just feel it's going to take time and patience and understanding. And, you know, if you offered me now a Europa Conference League place for next season, I'd be absolutely delighted with that, because then I think we could be back on a upward trajectory, building forward again. To jump from 12th to 5th is a big jump. I mean, we have just gone the other way, but I just think that it will be a big jump to go back 7 places. So, yeah, and I'm also looking at what other teams are spending and buying, the buying experience, and it's going to be very difficult.
It is, to replace a captain and a leader like Bruno, not to mention the player he is. And we mentioned there, you know, about what they could achieve next season. It's also a case that it's very different selling the move to Newcastle to someone like Toure, with all due respect, and Bruno's replacement. Like, the sales pitch has to be vastly different there, you would assume anyway, and that's not going to be easy. But how important is it that we do just, we keep calm about this situation? Players come, players go. Jeff here says the project isn't dead, it's just changing. We're never going to keep Bruno forever. What's key is how we move forward once he goes. There's plenty of opportunity out there, because we mentioned that Newcastle are undergoing a massive rebuild. And yes, they signed a couple of players, but they still need a full-back coming in. Arguably still need number one, probably another centre midfielder, someone to forward in. And now they look like they're going to have to replace their captain. We have to remain calm, though, don't we? We have to put trust in Ross Wilson, faith in David Hopkinson and the scouting staff as well, not to let this totally derail Newcastle's summer window.
Yeah, I hope not.
Easier said than done.
Yeah. Well, they kind of already been severely weakened by losing Anthony Gordon, who's having a good World Cup, and Tonali, who we know exactly what he can do, but it was a good deal. I'll maintain that. Great deal to sell him for 100 million, because he didn't have a great season last season. Let's be honest. So to get 100 million is a positive, but it's who's coming in to replace those players. Obviously, we've got Toure through the door, and he's going to get his opportunity. But midfield, there's still one big hole in there, and there could be another one if Bruno goes. So that's a concern. But again, trying to be logical about it. What's today's date? July the 8th. So there's a long way to go in this window.
Yeah, the call to remain calm hasn't gone down well with some of our viewers watching live on YouTube. Not the most kind of comments, but thank you anyway for watching. This is football, though, isn't it? Like, it is frustrating. It is from a fan point of view. And we're both fans, absolutely devastating to lose someone like Bruno Guimaraes. But what can you do? If Bruno has told Newcastle United he wants to go, the only thing they can really do, given the limitations when it comes to spending, given the limitations when it comes to wages and the players they can attract, is just get the best price for Bruno Guimaraes. That's all they can do, because I don't think they'll be able to sign the players that turn his head back and persuade him to stay. I don't think they'll be overly committal on getting back to top four football, and certainly not challenging for the Premier League, which is ultimately what he wants. Like, I get it. It is in many ways an absolute disaster, because you're losing such an important player. But instead of running around the house screaming and crying about it, I think you just got to look at what's realistic and what Newcastle can actually do.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know, the screaming and crying one. Yeah. Look, you can't lose the plot, because again, let's look at the bigger picture. It could look great by the end of the window. It just depends on what happens. And what I would say is we need some clarity sooner rather than later. It's July the 8th now. If Bruno wants to leave the club, then let's sit down and have the conversation about it, and let's get it done early. It cannot drag on until the end of August. I mean, it's spilled into the actual Premier League season with Isak. The away game at Leeds, I think it was the second game of the season, and we're still talking about Alexander Isak. He was still on the books at that point. And then obviously he went on deadline day. Newcastle weren't equipped to make a good start to last season, and consequently missed out on Europe, arguably because of the way they started the season. It wasn't good enough. So they've experienced that. Let's make sure it doesn't happen again. You've got the opportunity to make a decision, go from there.
We've got Eric saying, I think it's mad that you think we will get anywhere near Europe. I don't think either of us said that would be the case. We definitely didn't say Champions League football. I think that's the point we're making, that it's probably adding to the reason. I would
be happy if we did.
Yeah, but I don't think it's likely. It's adding to maybe the reason Bruno wants to go. Philip says, I don't want another Isak drama. It totally derailed our season. A lot of people are asking about Eddie Howe and his role in all of this, and that has been the reaction from quite a large part of the the fan base on social media. It's always the barometer to measure things by. But I mean, how much of a role do you think Eddie Howe has had in Bruno coming to this apparent stage of wanting to leave Newcastle United?
Well, I would say it's never down to one person, and the head coach picks the team, has a say in some transfers, trains the team, gets everything coordinated. It will not be his decision. If you're asking me truthfully, I think if it was solely down Eddie Howe, wouldn't have sold Gordon, wouldn't have sold Tonali, certainly wouldn't sell Bruno. He'd want to keep hold of all three because he knows that those three helped Newcastle get into a Champions League place not that long ago. So he's not going to want to sell his best players. So it's got nothing to do with Eddie Howe to an extent. But for me, the people around him now have got to perform. They've got to provide him with what he needs to have a good go at next season. And at the minute, we've got some players with potential. We know that's going to be the project, but he needs more help, and he needs it quickly because the pre-season is next week. It starts next week, and he needs to get his messaging across early. So they need 2 players at least through the door by next week.
Yeah, well, fingers crossed that can happen. It's so interesting reading the comments here because some are split. Some are saying Eddie Howe should have gone after last season and it should have been a restart. Some are saying Eddie Howe potentially resigns if Bruno goes. I think it's probably somewhere in the middle. I don't think he resigns, and I don't think him leaving probably would have changed Bruno Guimaraes' outcome. I think it's just probably all down to a realistic look at what Arsenal can achieve, to what Newcastle United can achieve, and maybe look, even if Newcastle's got into the Champions League, Bruno might still be knocking on the door and saying, I want to go to a place that can actually challenge for the Premier League title. And again, I don't think you can hold that against him. A couple of more questions then, just to quickly finish off. Did you see this kind of coming? I mean, the Fulham game is one thing everyone keeps going back to. Bruno's post after the game and kind of his body language before he was subbed as well. He didn't look happy. That post didn't read as a happy man. Is it a total surprise that this has come about?
Not really. There was a sort of horrible feel that last season was kind of grinding into an unsatisfactory conclusion, and it's so proved. I mean, they were in with a late shout at getting into Europe, but it wasn't enough. So, not surprised that this has happened. The minute he gets on a plane to the World Cup without signing a new contract at Newcastle, I know that's kind of it. Last year was becoming less likely, but the minute he sat on a plane going to the World Cup without that new deal, knowing he's going into the greatest stage of football to impress, that was a worry for me. So I'm not surprised. Maybe he feels he's done enough at the World Cup, penalty miss aside. Maybe he feels he's done enough to show the world that he's a top player. And yeah, as you say, what if the Premier League champions come calling? Doesn't matter who they are, you're going to be tempted. So yeah, lots to think about.
Yeah, we've got Elise saying in the comments here, I think Newcastle should hold out for 100 million. We've got a few people commenting about how excited I am about this new transfer approach. It's always been caveated though by the fact it needs experience, and it needs even more experience if Bruno does indeed go. But also, let's be positive. That was my message on this morning's episode with John Gibson. Let's just have a bit of optimism. Obviously, this changes things ever so slightly. I'll finish off on a question that has been sent in. I can't see who it's from, but I can read it out. It puts you on the spot slightly, and it simply asks, do you think Bruno will be here for the first game of the season?
Oh, it's just slightly put me on the spot, isn't it? Well, based on what we've seen so far, and based on what we haven't heard from the player himself. I mean, there's been no official statement. So going off those two factors, I would say at the minute, tonight on July the 8th, it feels unlikely that he will be a Newcastle player come the start of the season. Now, there's a lot can change before then. So I hope that he is still a Newcastle player. But based on all the factors we've seen and heard so far and what we haven't heard, I would say it's not looking good, is it?
It's not. And if I was the person getting asked that question, I would say I'd be heavily weighted to saying no, he won't be a Newcastle United player.
Yeah, it's a yes, no. I mean, I don't know what the audience think. Just drop us a yes, no. Let us know.
Yeah, let us know in the comments. I'll finish off on this pleasant one. Andrew, you remain positive listening to the band on the Titanic. I just watched that movie the other day, actually. So, if I was on the Titanic and I was going to go down, I wouldn't mind playing the violin or whatever if I couldn't get into a lifeboat. So there we go. But anyway, thanks for tuning in, guys. It's been a pleasure as always. Me and Lee will be back in the coming days. Do it, thumbs up, do it, subscribe, jump into the comments and head over to chroniclelive.co.uk to keep up to date with this Bruno Guimaraes saga. Lee will be bringing you all the updates when they do indeed drop, and we'll catch you guys very soon.